What is an important piece of advice you can give for those moving into the real world? Even though money goes in and out of your account automatically doesn't mean you never have to look at your bank account. Just a quick daily check of your balance and spendings will keep you out of a lot of troubles. This is an excellent tip. Money management feels completely different when it's an actual number and not an estimate in your head. Thank God most banks have mobile apps to where you can check your balances instantly. I'd be screwed if I didn't have that option. I'm guilty of this lol. I spend a shit ton and then become too scared to check my statement. I have a very simple Excel sheet I've made with my checking account, savings, and credit card balances. On the left is a column with my checking account balance predicted for the rest of the year. I have recurring expenses, rent, student loan payments, car payment. All that stuff is out and ahead of time. And then my paychecks. And also predicted amounts for my 3 credit cards each month. Which also serves as a budget goal. It's really simple and I update it and look at it. At least very briefly. Every day. Highly recommend. You'll feel so much more aware of and in control of your finances. And it takes 15 minutes each week total. When furnishing your home with stuff you find on the side of the road, it's fine to take hard things, tables, art, etc., but never pick up soft things, upholstered chairs, carpets. Even with hard things you have to be careful. Lots of places critters can hide even in tables. Get those big plastic bags and let them sit in that for a week or two. In hot sun if possible and maybe with some diatomaceous earth. This shit is basically asbestos for insects. Fire also works for cleansing mattresses. And heretics. If you're unhappy with your job, put tons of effort into finding a new one ASAP. Also learn to recognize toxic work environments. I once saw a guy quit his job in under 4 hours. Just noped right out. A few years back I saw a dude quit immediately after a bad meeting. It was about 10 tech people in meeting. Boss outlines vision of new product. Tech dude explains why this is not a good idea. Boss has a rant about how he can't have negative people on the team and maybe tech dude needs to step out of the meeting while they finish up. Tech dude leaves room. Goes to his desk and writes resignation. Boss was surprised. Why you quitting? Tech dude. You don't want my input. You don't respect my views. Out of curiosity. Was he right? He's right that his view wasn't being respected. You don't ask people to leave a meeting for questioning an idea or the implementation of an idea. You can discuss it and if you aren't going to resolve it right there, talk about it sometime in the future as a team or privately. The luxury of knowing you can walk into another job. Unfortunately so many can't afford to do this. When I was in uni I was super stressed. People would always say to me, if you're this stressed now, wait until you get out into the real world. I've been out in the real world for 2 decades now and it's been so much easier than uni. Go out there and enjoy post-uni life. If you're this stressed now, wait until you get out into the real world. This, by the way, is one of the worst things you can say. If someone is convinced that their situation will never get better, they'll look for other ways out. Ugh. My parents said that shit all the time. They also say shit like college will be the best years of your life because then you'll be in the real world where you'll be burdened with responsibilities all the time. If you're the kind of person who says stuff like this, it's time to reevaluate the way you live your life. Life isn't all fun and games. But it isn't supposed to be an endless torrent of stress and misery either. College was the worst time of my life. Not that it was bad. There was great people and I loved my degree classes. But it just wasn't enjoyable for me. My job and my field. Now that's the shit. So many bills can be set on autopay that if you're well within your budget, it's hardly a responsibility beyond checking that it came through. Cleaning? Do it right as you make a mess and it'll hardly take more than a few hours a week. The real world is honestly pretty enjoyable if you can get settled. I can only foresee major medical issues and children destroying my comfort. The people who made college the best years of their life neglect their actual education and career building. And pay the price for it later. That's why people say it. It's okay to say no. It's just a job. There will be others. Don't try fitting in if it requires you to break your personal values. Being respectful and polite is cool. Great comment. I feel as if a lot of people can struggle with simply saying no because they believe it is implied as mean. But in reality, it shouldn't be. Agreed. Also, and added to that, respect yourself. Seriously. Don't let people walk all over you. Or talk down to you. It can quickly become the norm. Not only can it become the norm, it will become the norm. Honestly. As someone who's been walked over in some respect my whole life. How? Is it just a switch you turn on one day? Look after your teeth because they are expensive to fix. Toothpaste. A good toothbrush and dental floss are cheap, so use them well. Look after your credit rating. It is difficult to fix when it goes wrong, and also remember that things do go wrong, so perhaps have a small contingency available if you can. Learn to save and budget so you know how much you can use and save comfortably. Be good to yourself and look after mental health. Look after your teeth. Even if you think they're fine, they might not be. At 39 I'm paying the price. Never had any real problems. But proper dental care was never instilled in me, and by the time I realized that it was a hard habit to break, or make. And it's gradual. Really think about your mouth situation. I didn't realize how bad mine had gotten until I started getting better. You're not supposed to bleed. Your teeth should not be loose, like at all. Hot and cold shouldn't bother you. You should be able to eat anything you want. I didn't realize how much I had compromised until I really started to actively think about it. Brush twice a day and floss once a day. It's okay to miss a day here and there, but it needs to happen. Dentist at least once a year. Twice is better. Yeah. Problem is, it was the dentist that ducked up my mouth to begin with. If your dentist has long curling hairs coming from the tip of his nose, find a different dentist. Yes. Don't be afraid of a second opinion. I ended up at one of those upcharge corporations, not a national chain, which made my 2 root canals cost $1,600. But the endodontist office copay was only $95 in a different situation. I finished my root canals, crown part, in Mexico because that dentist wanted another $1,000 for them. A coworker also went there and they suggested oral surgery to her for thousands before they even opened her mouth. With the teeth thing. If you're moving forward in the real world with young kids, babies, make sure they get into good habits with their teeth hygiene. Please. I know this cause my parents didn't give a care in the world. Now I'm paying for it. Feels bad JPEG. The real world is actually really small. Be careful of burning bridges because you'd be surprised how easy it is to run into someone years and years after you last saw them. Here's the biggest minbuck I've had related to this. I moved to a different town across the country for a new job. My current landlord is the mother of a girl I studied with in university on a separate continent. My rent is cheap. I live 8 minutes drive from work. The neighborhood is reasonably safe. Yet it's very accessible, which means I can invite friends to come over. I'd be ducked out of the perfect place to live had I been mean to this girl. Never stop learning. Keep up with your old hobbies and interests. And pick up new ones. Takes classes. Free ones and pay for those you can afford. Join groups for people with your interests so you can learn from them and learn from teaching them. I think it's just as important to avoid complacency. It is incredibly addictive, and if you're not someone who has a surplus of self-discipline, reversing the bad habit is going to be a beach. Letting yourself having lazy days is fine and healthy. But keep yourself in check. They can quickly become the norm. Self-discipline is something I wish I had. How can one learn it? People say it's little by little, but yeah. That's the problem. Little by little requires discipline. Which I lack. It's very much an environmental thing. That is. People with self-discipline put themselves, or happen to find themselves, in an environment where they can flourish. Those without it usually find themselves in environments that disallow it. Think very carefully first about curating your environment and mental state. For example, Try to keep your room tidy. Try to take a walk in the woods if you can. You'll find that it's much easier to keep on top of things. Someone having willpower is a very misused term. It usually means someone grew up and continues to find themselves in environments where they aren't tempted as much. I think most people are lazy by nature. The trick is to put yourself in a position of accountability. Volunteer somewhere. You might even learn a new skill. Coach something you enjoyed doing. You don't have to be great at it. Just being present is more than enough. Pay for a class so you are motivated to go to it. Don't just react to things. Think critically. Take a few seconds to analyze situations and come up with conclusions. Always be self-aware and never let people use your emotions against you. This is just good advice in general. I'd add to this. Think at least as critically about your own beliefs as you do of others. Never react to an opposing view with anger. Take some time to listen and consider it. There is always a chance you are wrong. The intensity of your social life will likely change, and this is mostly a good thing. But be prepared for it. Being outside of school means you are free from a lot of the weird drama that comes with doing everything in a closed system with roughly the same people. There is still drama, but you can almost always escape it because your life is divided now. You don't live with all your friends and work with them. On the other hand, making new social connections is a new challenge because you aren't thrown into a closed system with people all at your stage of life with many of the same problems. But making friends definitely happens. For me, wherever I was in life, it always took me about 1 year to make one new close friend. Patience is key. I would say you make fewer social connections, but a lot of them are of higher quality. A last piece of advice. Don't view work as your only source, or even your primary source. For friends, dates, and hookups, try to keep part of your social life separate. College is the last time in life where everyone you know your age is roughly doing the same thing and experiencing the same challenges. From here on out, everyone's paths will differ, and that's okay. Some of your friends will get married or have children. Some won't. Work experiences and careers will be vastly different. You stop moving in lockstep with your peers. I'm still scared of this. It makes me feel like a failure. I know it doesn't mean I am, but sometimes I can't shake it. That group of college friends goes from being 90% of your social circle to something like 50%. Or even 20%. Or maybe even 0%. Depending on what happens after college. It'll get easier to stop comparing yourself to a peer group when that peer group kinda melts into a broader social universe of friends from your work, your neighborhood, your hobbies, and even things like other parents at things your kids do. From that early 20s social circle, you'll slowly start to mix in other stuff. To the point where when you're 30, you might have a close friend group that is anywhere from 25 to 40, each who bring different experiences to the table. At that point, it should really drive home the point that everyone needs to do what's right for themselves, with their own set of priorities. When you see everyone else doing different things, it feels much more comfortable to go your own way. So on that journey of figuring out your own life path, the things others are doing no longer provide a direct comparison, but rather provide data and examples whose relevance to your own life is totally up to you. Learn from the stuff you think is worth following and the things worth avoiding. And learn to filter the things that just don't apply to you. That's how you learn to define your own life success or failure, without having to compare yourself to that same group of friends you grew up with. Best comment of the day. Almost no one knows what they are doing, or what they are talking about. If you can find the one person who does, in print or in person, hang on to them. If you can be the one person who does, you can achieve, you'll be invaluable to others, and they will hate you for it.